Hello everybody, happy Sunday. Thank you for being here. Appreciate those of you that are here as always. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hope everybody's having a good day, a nice weekend. Hopefully that Leo new moon that we have is going, was good for you or is going well, or anything that you see popping up with that. The energy through this whole lunar cycle just kind of keeps rolling. Not necessarily like with a ton of aspects happening at one time like we had a couple months ago, but you know, the new moon we talked about being pretty pretty loud and powerful for some people. The full moon is equally loud and powerful in my opinion. It's a continuation of the loud and powerful, and we have some turning points this week too. So we have Mercury that is coming into its Cazimi moment. We have Venus moving into the sign of Cancer, and as it does, it's gonna interact with those planets that we have in the sign of Aries. If you've watched the weekly video, then you've already heard a little bit of all of that, or a much bigger breakdown than what we might do here. If you haven't seen that video, go ahead and look back to the weekly videos and you'll find that it's always released on Saturday. So that way you can have it ahead of our meditation and you can listen to it, get a much fuller explanation of what's going on. Not going to say complete because we could always talk for a very long time, and I try to keep those videos as condensed as possible. Some of them are longer than others, but I do try to keep them shorter and more of an attainable time, because I know that my time is valuable, which means that your time is valuable, right? Yeah, so we also have we have our meditations, we have the weekly video, and then we have our intention. So we'll go ahead and put that up for this week if you haven't seen that. Intentions are released Saturday, weekly video, or sorry, intention comes out Friday, weekly video comes out Saturday, and then we have our meditation on Sunday. So it's usually later in the day, later in the evening that the intention comes out, but you can see it before the weekly video, or at least by the time the weekly video comes out. So here's our intention for this week. Perception shifts while reality and imagination coalesce. So it's kind of a long one. Perception shifts while reality and imagination coalesce. So a couple things coming together, couple things, or something shifting, something changing. Mercury's retrograde, right? We have the Mercury's Cazimi coming through here. So let's sit with that intention for just a moment, and as we do so, just see what comes up when you hear those words, when you say them to yourself, when you say them out loud, when you think them in your head. Any thoughts, any feelings, any recent experiences or things that you have going on in your life that comes up. Anything that it makes you want to move towards, anything that it makes you want to avoid. Just sitting with that for just a moment. Perception shifts while reality and imagination coalesce. And coalesce is like come together, merging, things joining together to create like kind of like a whole. So thinking of like a bunch of little puddles forming together to equal like a big puddle or something kind of like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put the chart up so that way we can take a quick peek at that. I've mentioned this before, but if looking at the chart is overwhelming for you, then just feel free to look away, feel free to close your eyes, look towards something else and just kind of listen to the words. I do think that the more we look at the chart, the less overwhelming it can get, and then we start to kind of recognize or be able to follow along with it a little bit easier. So it's just to introduce us to it in small doses, or just to be able to visualize what is going on. And it's just another level of creating that relationship with the astrology and the energies that are around us here. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put the chart up here for now. So you all should see the the astrology wheel. This is the real-time clock through solar fire here that is up. So this is the chart of the moment. So when we're starting our meditation here at 8:40 p.m. Eastern time, this is the chart based on my time zone and my location. So the house placements may be different where you are, but we're not necessarily looking at the house placements here. We're just looking at the planetary placements, the degrees, and the signs and the interactions that they are making. So the house placements are not necessarily important. So we can see that the moon is currently at 14 degrees of Virgo. I mentioned that the moon is going to be moving, in the weekly video, I mentioned that the moon is going to be moving across the south node and then moving across Mars after that. So that could be a little bit of a pingy moment for people coming through tomorrow and into the next day. So just kind of pointing that out. But really what we're going to do here is we're going to roll this forward into Wednesday into Thursday. So it's just before midnight, Wednesday into Thursday, that Venus moves into the sign of Cancer. So let me just back this up a little bit here. Literally like 11:57 or 58, something like that. Yep. So 11:57 here. So 11:57 p.m. Eastern time, Wednesday night into Thursday morning. We will all wake up Thursday, and Venus will have ingressed into the sign of Cancer. You can see that in the 4th house in this chart. If you look way to the bottom of the chart, and you'll see the number 4 in the center there, you'll see Venus at 0 degrees. Notice that we have a glyph next to her, which means that she's going to be moving into moving towards a conjunction with Jupiter. So we have that coming up, which I feel like that is really exciting. So Venus moving into the sign of Cancer itself is moving her from an airy place into a watery, emotional place. She's going from a place ruled by Mercury to a place ruled by the moon. So there is much more of a nurturing, gentle, kind, maybe affectionate, very fertile placement for Venus to be. So maybe looking to find unity within our close-knit like circle within your own little family or your own little home or your own little space, maybe wanting to create some sort of balance or cohesion, or this is a great time to either provide care or nurture our own souls, or care for others, or provide self-care. There could be advocacy, there could be some affectionate energy towards others as Venus moves into the sign of Cancer. Really, it's an emotionally bonded and emotionally connected place for Venus to be. If we roll this forward here, really we only need to go forward a few hours. We will see that Sun and Mercury can join. Here we go, at 9 degrees. So that's like Wednesday night into Thursday morning, and then later on Thursday night, just before 8 p.m. Eastern time, we have Sun and Mercury coming together in the sign of Leo at 9 degrees. At this time, Venus is still sitting at 0 degrees, but if we roll it forward the next day, she'll move forward to 1 degree. Well, I guess it's actually back a little bit before that. There we go, 1 degree. And she is going to make a square to Saturn and Neptune in the sign of Aries. So really what we're looking at this week is Venus moving into the sign of Cancer, Mercury Cazimi, which is Mercury making a conjunction with the Sun. It's a resetting moment for Mercury. It's halfway point of its retrograde cycle. And Venus making this square to Saturn and Neptune as the Mercury Cazimi comes through here. So those are the things that we're going to look at here this week. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take solar fire off there. So if we go back to our intention and break it down a little bit here. Perception shifts. Mercury Cazimi. So when we have any planet come into conjunction with the Sun, it's a resetting moment for that planet. So it's a resetting moment for Mercury, for our mind, our thoughts, communications, perceptions, the way we bring information in, the way we put information out there into the world, and the way that we perceive that information, the way others perceive that information, the way we talk with others, the way other people talk with us, the way we communicate verbally and non-verbally, the tools and the resources, the assets that allow us to get our work done, those little tools within your daily resources. Those can be very mercurial type things too. In the sign of Leo, there is a very solar purpose focus. It's the place. Leo is the place of the sun. It's a place that shines brightly. There is lots of authenticity. There is lots of there can be spontaneity. There can be enthusiasm. There can be just wanting to have our own autonomy and being able to have our own light shine from within us. So I've talked a lot about the mind and heart connection and connecting our mind and our heart space. We've brought that into our meditation a couple different weeks here. So you have this shift of perception here as the Mercury Cazimi comes through. Anytime you have a Mercury Cazimi, you have a phasal change and a cycle change for that planet. So Mercury is going from the evening star phase into the morning star phase. So that is a perception shift and an attitude shift for Mercury. We have a morning star Mercury, which is what we're going into, is a more youthful, more exuberant, more excited, looking to go out and bring more information in, where a evening phase star, this applies to Mercury, this would also apply to like Venus's phases, you get a little bit more of an aged or experienced type Mercury, okay? So after the morning star phase, the more youthful, exuberant type phase, we get the more experienced, maybe elderly crone type phase. We get a phase that moves a little bit slower, and that's where we're coming from. So we're coming from this place of experience and maybe completion, and there's a history behind it for the Mercury. Now we are moving into a new cycle here. There is a resetting moment, a burning up moment, and a restart for Mercury as it comes across the conjunction with the sun. Then we move forward into the evening star phase. So to me, symbolically, that can be like that's like a death and a rebirth. So there's lots of different debates about like where the Mercury cycle starts, whether it's the inferior conjunction coming up into the morning star phase or the superior conjunction coming down into the evening star phase. Personally, within my own mind, I think moving into the morning star phase where we go into this youthful, new beginning. I think about like moving forward into new territory and being excited and being willing to like explore new things and curious. That's the morning star phase. So that's what we're going into. So it's a shift, right? It's a perception shift. We're going from a different phasal into like from one phase into another, and then it's our perception shifting through the reset, through the burning up. I've talked about this before, but when I think about like planetary Cazimis, if you've ever watched Doctor Who and you've seen like the moments where the Doctor regenerates from like one person from like one doctor into the other, and like a new actor comes in or whatnot, there's like an actual like, it's not that he actually like burns up, but there's like a light that shines from inside, and then he like it gets really, really bright, and then he like transforms into somebody like a different person. He's the same person, but a different personality, and maybe like a different look and different aesthetics and different mannerisms and things that come up from it. But like within, it's still the same person. So like it's still Mercury, but it's like a new Mercury that is coming forward from emerging from the Cazimi. So we have this like in-between space here, right? In between the evening star and the morning star, in between the like pre-Cazimi and post-Cazimi, right? You have this like liminal middle space here for Mercury. At the same time, we have Venus that's making the square to Saturn and Neptune, and I think the interaction with Saturn and Neptune and the planets that interact with it is very interesting right now, because there's such a there's such a contrast between the two. Excuse me a minute there. So when you have a square you have a place that challenges us, right? You have, I often think of, and I've talked about this before, when we have a square, it's an aspect that makes us uncomfortable, and just uncomfortable enough to want to move, or it shows us that something needs to change. Maybe we don't have the answers, maybe we don't know exactly what needs to shift or change, but we know that there's a tension, there's something that's not working quite right. Sometimes the squares feel like they're a call to action, so it's, we see we're noticing what the problem is, so we know that we need to go forward and fix the problem, so we're gonna find a way to do so, or if the pathway is visible and we can see what we need to do, then we go down that pathway. So that's the square aspect. And then Venus being part of the square, Venus relates to that which we create, that where we find beauty, harmony, and desire. So I think creativity is a big Venusian trait. And if we have Venus in the sign of Cancer, so those Venus things may have that emotional bond, that emotional connectedness, and those emotional ties, like the things that we're invested in. The moon is the ruler of Cancer, right? So the things that we are invested in, the things that we are putting our energy into, they can relate very deeply within us, and they can have a history. They can have a mental and an emotional connection and charge within our own being. So we have this creative tension through the square from Venus to Saturn and to Neptune. And the contrast between Saturn and Neptune is very interesting, and we've had several planets that, like, when they cross over from one sign boundary to another, they're interacting with Saturn and Neptune in some sort of way. And Saturn is the reality. Neptune is the imagination. And they're coming together, right? They're coalescing. They have been sitting co-present in the sign of Aries. They are some of the closest that they're going to be until they start to come, until they come into their exact conjunction, which is like February of next year. So they're sitting really, really close together, and they're actually retrograding back together. Earlier this year, we talked about how they're going to move back into the sign of Pisces together, and they're going to move back forward into the sign of Aries, kind of together in a little bit of a partnership. So, the initial move from Pisces into the sign of Aries took us from a place of contemplation, a place of reflection, into a place of action, a place of moving forward. As they move back, it feels to me like there was a need to initiate some sort of action, and then the fact that they're going to retrograde back into Pisces is going to show us that we need to slow down, we need to reevaluate, we need to see kind of where we're at, and then we're going to move back forward with that, like, final action, or like the final start of the action, maybe, because both of these planets have quite a bit of time in the sign of Aries yet. So you have this contrast that is moving together. They are coalescing. They are merging together. We have reality. We have imagination. We have Saturn, the planet of death, the planet of finality, the planet of endings, the planet of, letting things go and letting things fall away. And then we have the planet of believing in everlasting. Right? We have the planet Neptune, where sometimes it feels like what we have could just last forever and could just go on and on and on. It could seem almost seem eternal. So we have this dichotomy here, and Venus is interacting with both of these within the square. So there is a challenge for Venus, who's in this very sensitive place, this very bonded and very connected place. She wants to be, Venus in the sign of Cancer wants to have a safe space. She wants to feel comfortable. She wants to feel like she can express herself and feel like there's a comfortable, like a safe space for a backing behind it. When I think about the sign of Cancer and that safe space, I think about like a child who feels comfortable enough with its parents behind it to like be able to go forward and maybe explore something new, or wander away from them, or move a little further away in the park or something, because they look back and they notice that like mom and dad are there watching, and they know that if they need them, they can run back to that safe space. So it allows them to explore, and it allows them to have fun, and it allows them to smile and relax a little bit. So that's one way you could think about Venus in the sign of Cancer. And she's challenged to to reconcile with Saturn and Neptune, which is giving her probably a little bit of mixed vibes in a way. Meanwhile, we have the Mercury cazimi that's going on. So we have this shift within our perception. And then we have these two different things that almost seem like they could have a difficulty coming together in some ways. Both planets, in their own way, in their own right, connect us to otherworldly, or let's just say like, I don't know, fringe type energy, or like the boundary type energy, right? Like Saturn can set boundaries, and Neptune is typically considered to dissolve boundaries. However, Saturn, before we had the outer planets and we have just their traditional planets, the ones that we can see with our eye, Saturn was the farthest most out planet. So Saturn has something to do with the limits and being within a liminal space, being between like what we can see and what we cannot see. So there's that contrast right there within the sign of Saturn, and we typically think of Neptune as like letting go, releasing, and like fully enveloping ourselves and being intoxicated by something. So the lines can blur, right? So there's this difference, and Venus is called to find a way to reconcile and to be able to work with both of these at the same time. So thinking about like where the hard realities are within our lives, but where can we still find a little creativity or a little imagination within that? It's a square, so it's not going to be easy. It's not that, it's kind of like, it feels like we have to kind of look for it a little bit. It almost feels like, with the intention this week, it almost feels a little bit like a reminder, like, you know, while our perception is shifting, let's remind ourselves that reality and imagination are both coexisting. They're coalescing. They are merging together. They are, coalesce versus merge feels, originally I was going with the word merging, but coalesce just feels a little more flowy and maybe a little less forceful. It just feels a little bit more, the word felt a little bit more natural to me, let's say that. So it feels like there is potential for a turning point, for new beginnings, for being able to ground ourselves, balance ourselves, bring us into, ground ourselves into reality and into like expectations and like realistic expectations, but still being able to believe, still being able to find an imagination, still being able to find a little bit of magic or a little bit of wonder about the situation that's going on. And when you can do both of those, then there's a lot that you can get done. And then Venus sitting in such a fertile place can really start to grow and start to proliferate and start to really give us that security wherever Cancer is within our own lives and within our own charts. So I see this as like almost like I don't want to say like a secretive, helpful energy, but like I guess just one that you really kind of have to look for is the best way that I can describe it. So then when I pulled a card for today, and it was the Hermit card that came up, I didn't think that that was like super out of the realm of where we were. So the Hermit, let's see, there we go. I love these cards. They're so pretty. I wanted to get it to focus so you could get a picture of my Hermit crab here. So the Hermit represents a place of quiet, a place of silence, right? A place of introspection, a place of silence and answers coming from within, sitting with yourself, solitude, inner guidance, introspection, soul searching. Look how he's got the Hermit's got his lantern that he's holding up, right? And I think, so the Hermit within the Rider-Waite deck is like a figure that's holding up a light, right? I'm pretty sure, yeah, I think that so like I have several decks that I use, right? Sometimes they're oracle cards, sometimes they're one of my different tarot decks that I have. I find that it's very fitting that the Hermit is like an actual hermit crab in this one, because that's not what it is in the Rider-Waite, and we're talking about Venus being in the sign of Cancer. Cancer planets can be a little bit hermit-like, because they like comfort, they like stability, they like their own solitude, they can like their own space. That doesn't mean that they don't want to go out with others. If we have Cancer placements, we also have other like more social or outward type placements, then we might just be really kind of kind and nurturing and just looking for that in the spaces that we are going in. But often Cancers, even if they are more social, they do like their own safe space, and they like to kind of have their own haven that they can go to. So the Hermit card to me is representing this, like, is pointing out where you kind of have to look for this energy, and you might have to kind of have to piece it out a little bit. So this Mercury Cazimi, that's a very empowering moment. It's a reset moment for our mind and with the connections with our heart. So the sun is very empowered in the sign of Leo because it's its own sign, right? At the same time, Venus is in a very fertile and a very, I would say, almost a nice beneficial place. It's definitely not the worst place for Venus to be. She doesn't have any exact like dignity that is there necessarily that lifts her up, but it feels like one of the, it could feel a little bit more, I don't know if stable is the word, but a little bit more central or a little bit more centered, maybe not grounded, but a little bit more center focused than Venus in the sign of Gemini. Personally, I really enjoyed Venus in Gemini, but I'm looking forward to moving to a water sign and being a little bit more connective and a little bit more receptive, rather than just bringing in so much energy and then trying to like disperse it outward and kind of parse it out that way. So I'm thinking that this week, as the Cazimi comes through, as our perception shifts, as maybe the way we communicate, or maybe the way that we mentally hold ourselves some way starts to shift, starts to change, remind ourselves about the reality and the imagination. Remind ourselves that, you know, we can believe in whatever it is that we believe in, but we can, and have that imagination, have that aspiration to like reach into some sort of everlasting type energy, but also know that there's finality within this physical world, right? So there's deadlines that we need to hit. So we can be dreaming about the future, but we need to remember the work that is like here and now, and not go too far out of our scope and too far off the deep end, where Venus in the sign of Gemini may have kind of had herself all over the place. Now this feels like it's bringing us, now she's kind of like, it's like, okay, you've had your playtime, you've had your curious time, Venus. Now, as you move into the sign of Cancer, you are going to have, some fruitful benefits, I'm sure of it. Venus and Jupiter are coming into that conjunction. But first, you need to balance this creative tension that we have. So we need to see where reality is hitting us in the face, but where can we not let that, where can we take that seriously, but not let it dull the shine that we have within us? Where can we not let us lose sight of like what really lights us up? You know, fire sign, Aries is fire, it's passion, it's creativity. Neptune in Aries is willing to fight for what it believes in. The square to Venus may be challenging us to remind us that we have that spark within us. So these are the type of things that I'm thinking about for this week, and hopefully this is kind of giving you some positive things to think about, and some positive, positive vibes and some motivating vibes here. So the Hermit, I don't see this necessarily as a week of going out and things necessarily exploding. Maybe for some people they are. Personal placements are always important, right? And whatever things are going on here. But making sure we fully consider things with the Hermit card coming through, Mercury Cazimi, making sure we aren't blinded by the light, make sure we aren't overdone by the sparkles with Venus Neptune, and make sure that we are not losing that childlike wonder by sticking too much in Saturn. So keeping your feet on the ground while allowing yourself to dream and imagine at the same time, and that can be a hard balance, especially when we're participating in the world. It's like when you can keep your memory, in your remembrance of your divinity, of the eternalness, of that which is everlasting, while still staying grounded within the physical world. And do that through most moments of the day. You know, it's hard. It's a lot of work, especially within this physical, mundane world that we are in. But when you can do that, it can be really, really magical and really, really productive at the same time. Thank you. The allowing me to have moments with, like, to sip on my tea while I'm working, while I'm talking, it really has been helpful. That's hopefully you guys have noticed the difference in my voice too. So thank you for allowing me to have that. So that's what we have going on for this week. I think it's a very interesting energy, and I think that there's some interesting things that can come out of it here. So let's go ahead and come into this in-between space, this place where we are contemplating on the energies that are around us while still considering our week that's coming up. So Neptune, allowing ourselves to merge into the collective energy. Saturn, keeping ourselves grounded, keeping ourselves still, and bringing in whatever it is in your environment and that which is around you. So, all right, if you haven't already, let's come to a comfortable seated position. I'm going to move the intention here in just a moment, so I'll leave that up for anybody that needs to see it once more. Perception shifts while reality and imagination coalesce. Perception shifts while imagination and reality coalesce. Whichever way you put those words is fine. And if you don't necessarily like reality and imagination, we've talked about everlasting and death. We've talked about magic and mundane. So you can put other words in there. You can put black and white. You can put black, white, and gray. You can put belief and lack of belief. You know, you can change those words to whatever it is that you want it to be. You know, you can put boundaries and dissolution of boundaries, whatever words work for you that you've heard us mention here, or something different, whatever is coming to mind to you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move the intention out of the way here. And we have our intentional candle as always. It's white. I want white for purity, cleansing, and a fresh start for whatever it is that you need. So if you need to change the words of the intention, you go ahead and do it. If you need to change up something within this meditation, you go ahead and do it from your own space. If you need this candle to be something other than white, then you go ahead and change that and alter that from your own space that you are in, and just visualize it being any other color that you want it to be. I still have an empty table here. I don't know, I just haven't had a huge inspiration to start adding to it lately, which usually I do. So we have my good old guidance bell. That was my grandmother's. That's always here and always sits right next to where I meditate. So we're going to light our intentional candle, and we're going to come into our meditative space. And I'm really looking forward to this one. So I'm going to light the intentional candle, and as I do so, I'm going to recite the intentional phrase. As I recite the phrase, I encourage you to say it with me however you can, saying it out loud, saying it within your head, writing it down so you have it for the rest of the week. I have shown you all before that I put it on a sticky note that I keep in front of me during meditation, and then I put it on my computer. I also write it in my planner usually for the week. So however it works for you. All right. So I'm going to light the candle and say the intention. Perception shifts while reality and imagination coalesce. Okay. All right. So I'm going to light the intentional candle. So light the candle, the flame ignites. The flame ignites, the flame begins to grow. As the flame grows, so does our intention. Perception shifts while reality and imagination coalesce. Perception shifts while reality and imagination coalesce. This is a good one. I can feel the energy already swirling around. So if you haven't already, find yourself a nice, comfortable position. Seated with your legs crossed is great. Laying down is wonderful too. Sitting in a chair with your feet planted firmly on the ground, hands in your lap, palms facing upward, facing downward, whatever works for you. If you have any last minute wiggles or fidgets that you need to get out, feel free to move around. I like to shake out my hands sometimes. I know, sometimes sitting here listening to me talk for a half hour can be kind of difficult before we move to this part. Okay. And when you're ready, find your place of stillness. Wiggles, moves, fidgets. We're turning into the hermit for the week, right? So if you need to get any movements out, go for it. Moving energy feels good today. If you're ready to do so, feel free to go ahead and close your eyes. If you're not ready to do so, that is completely okay. And if you don't feel ready to close your eyes throughout this entire meditation, that's okay too. If you're not ready to close your eyes, I encourage you to soften your gaze, maybe find a point in front of you that you can look towards, but just kind of gaze beyond and not stare too intently at. Just soften your gaze and let your eyes fall where they fall. Perhaps they fall at a point just beyond your nose or wherever is most comfortable for you. And once we've come into our own personal place of stillness, we turn our attention towards the breath. As we turn our attention towards the breath, as always, let's start by simply acknowledging and observing the breath. As we come into this space of observing, it may feel somewhat natural for us to want to start to attempt to change the breath, improve the breath, fix the breath. Perhaps we start to pass judgments on the breath, both positive and negative can be considered judgments. For now, I encourage you to attempt to hold back from any adjustments and any judgments that you may make on your breath. Simply observe and acknowledge the quality of the breath that you've come to this space with. Observing the breath coming in and coming out. Notice what you notice. And I invite you to refrain from changing anything at this moment. When we sit with the breath without changing the breath, we're simply observing and acknowledging. There's a level of honoring the breath that comes within that. In your breath, the quality of your breath, the speed and efficiency of your breath, the awareness of your breath throughout the day, all components of the respiratory process of breathing in and breathing out. Is a result and a compilation of all of the moments, all of the experiences you've had up until now. An accumulation of the moments of today, of yesterday, of the week, of the month, and of the year, of this entire lifetime. It all plays a small part in the quality of the breath that you hold in this very moment. When you honor the breath, honor your experiences through the breath, through observing, you are honoring the experiences and the events of your life that have brought you to this very moment. And that is why we sit with our breath, without altering, without changing, without passing judgments. Here we honor our breath and we honor our path. After sitting with our breath, I now invite you to begin to deepen the inhale and the exhale. As you continue to observe the breath moving in and out of your body, you begin to deepen the breath through the inhale and the exhale. Here, as you start to alter the breath, I encourage you to allow your only goal to be that each inhale is slightly deeper, slightly longer, and slightly more fulfilling than the breath that came before it. Conversely, on the exhale, I encourage you to allow your only goal to be that that exhale releases slightly more air, slightly more energy, and leaves you slightly more relaxed than the exhale that came before it. Continuing to follow the breath as you deepen the inhales and the exhales, continuing to cultivate that relationship with your breath, your being, and your own energy within you. When you come back to this space time after time, whether it's every day or every week, or even every month or once a year, you are cultivating and building a relationship, a conscious relationship with your own energy. Notice what you notice as you deepen the inhales, deepen the exhales. Notice anything that comes up or anything that comes to you. Notice what you notice. If your attention wanders away, gently bring it back. When you spend time cultivating the energy within you, connecting to your breath, your perception can shift. Your mental processes can change. The way you communicate with others and yourselves, the way you speak to your higher self, the way you understand can shift. This week we also have a mental shift happening within the sky as well as within our lives. There is a mercurial reset wherever you find Leo within your own birth chart. Thinking about any planets you have there, thinking about what house it falls in, if you happen to know these things. If not, that's okay. You think about where the shifts are happening within your own lives. As Mercury and the Sun come together in the sign of Leo, just a week after the new moon in Leo, which was in direct opposition to Pluto, starting off the lunar cycle with deep transformation, things bubbling up from underneath. We now have a mental shift in that same space, a shift of perspective. Perhaps that's come up from what you've learned, what the new moon has proposed to you. Meanwhile, Saturn and Neptune interact with Venus, who has just recently moved into the sign of Cancer. And she steps from the airy, mental, communicative, curious space of Gemini, a sign that is ruled by Mercury, where she has been able to have the freedom and the flexibility to move about, experience different relationships, maybe explore different things that she enjoys, different ways of balancing and harmonizing, different ways of communicating. Now she's met at this watery, emotional, connective tissue sign. She's met at the front door with Saturn and Neptune. Old man Saturn, time, boundaries, the containers that holds our lives. And Neptune, the imagination, the magic to believe within ourselves, the magic to believe within what we are initiating. The everlasting wonder of a child that allows us to dream, allows us to create, and allows us to imagine where we could go from here. It's as if there's a sign that says, "You shall not pass," sitting right next to a sign that says, "You may wander and explore as you see fit." So here you find yourself at the front door, met by Saturn and Neptune, who aren't going to quite let you in until you've satisfied both of them. So here you stand at the front door with your feet firmly planted on the ground, staring at Saturn, saying, "Show me the reality. Show me the hard facts of where we are. Allow me to not turn my face away from exactly what is going on within my own life. But Neptune, do not let me lose hope. Allow me to continue to imagine, believe, find the magic and the romance within life." And as the Sun and Mercury come together, may the illumination of your mind grow exponentially. May the shifts within your mind allow you to move in a way that gives you personal freedom, ability, and autonomy. May you allow yourself to be the main character of the story of your life at this moment. Your life is your stage and your show. Sure, some parts of it have been predetermined or guidelines set or whatever it is that you believe in. But we also have so much ability and so much autonomy, so much ability to let our own light shine. Leo reminds us of that. This week, allow yourself to find a place of stillness. A place of stillness where you can recognize the balance of the liminal space that you find yourself in. Pre-reset, post-reset. Venus in Gemini, Venus in Cancer. Air versus water. Saturn and Neptune. Picturing yourself still with your feet planted firmly on the ground. You turn your head to Neptune. Allow me to explore. Allow me to see where boundaries and restrictions can dissolve. May I stand firm in my beliefs, but know that there is more and that I can reach into that more state. while still staying firmly planted in reality. So you look down towards your feet and you see them planted on the ground below you, firmly and strongly. And then you tilt your head and look up above you, and you see the vast, limitless sky that surrounds us at any moment. All of space, all of time, all of the energy that is there to be explored. And you imagine so much that is to yet come your way. So no matter how many reality sandwiches life has thrown your way lately, there is also a space if you look for it. It may be subtle, it may be quiet. The restrictions may seem louder or more at the forefront, but there is still a space for growth through imagination, magic, and belief. And it's not too far away from the reality and the truths. The truths and the non-truths coalesce, intermingle, and enter our lives and our hearts. Can you accept both? From a place of stillness. Taking a nice deep breath in together, breathing in, bringing all that beautiful air in within you, and exhale, releasing it out. Breathing in one more time. Air and energy coming into your being with the inhale. Breathe it in all the way down to your feet, grounding you down into the space below you. And on the exhale, release. The air and energy comes back up from your feet. As it releases out of your being, it moves up and out into the ethers around you, into the space, expanding like Neptune does. In this boundaryless, limitless space. As we move forward into this week, may you be able to find a balance of groundedness, keeping your feet planted while allowing yourself to soar. Can you find yourself someplace between reality and imagination? Can you find yourself someplace between that which is limited and that which is limitless? Can you find yourself in a space between that which lets go and endings, death and finality, and that which is unconditional and everlasting? That which has no beginning and no end. It only is. Such a liminal space requires contemplation, silence. as we end this meditation in a place of silence, I hold up once more the Hermit card. And if you are ready to do so, I encourage you to either visualize the Hermit card within your own mind or look at the card on the screen. Perhaps you stare at it and take in the image. Perhaps you glance at it quickly, close your eyes, and bring it back into your own space. Mental resets, creative tensions, release and expansion. Until next week, I leave you in this space and invite you to stay here as long as you need to. Take care, and God bless.